Okay, hello, welcome back, guys. So today we continue learning terraform. Today we learn in the chapter 4 terraform module. Yeah, so the okay, let's go. And uh, I will enable some music, the ceramic. Uh,
Red Bull tăng lực tức thì hút tới đi. Red Bull thương hiệu nước.
AFC, anh vặt phải chất. Thêm 2 gói hạt vào thảo mộc, giá không đổi.
Nhìn anh thấy cô đơn nên là em cho phép anh thương. Mong anh yêu em hơn bởi vì em yêu rất là bất thường. Dù chưa rõ nông sâu nhưng mà anh cứ mãi trong đầu, bởi người xưa mới hay có câu mãi sẽ có. Mình gặp nhau cũng lâu lắm rồi, cứ giật quạt một lần đi thôi. Nếu anh nói ta không đẹp đôi là sẽ em thương u thầm ý em rồi. Anh luôn thấy bất an trong lòng khi không có anh cạnh bên. Cũng vì ai mà em cáu lên khi chỉ là một người yêu dấu tên nhà. Xuyên qua trời anh để mặc dần trôi. Mấy đèn xanh rồi chỉ chờ anh ra nói. Có lắm rồi sẽ tiếc cho mà sẽ. Đời như anh riêng đang có em, đừng suy nghĩ thế. Vì anh thấy cô đơn nên là em cho phép anh thương. Mong anh yêu em hơn bởi vì em lúc yêu rất là bất thường. Dù chưa rõ nông sâu nhưng mà anh cứ mãi trong đầu. Đời người xưa mới hay có câu, có công mãi sắc có ngày nên duyên. Sẽ gặp anh ở lần sau, người em sẵn sàng trái lòng, nương tựa nhau suốt đời mãi không rời. Xuyên qua trời anh để mặc dần trôi. Đời này đâu mấy lần cơ hội sao mà anh chưa nói. Có lắm rồi sẽ tiếc cho mà sẽ. Đời như anh riêng đang có em, đừng suy nghĩ thế. Vì anh thấy cô đơn nên là em cho phép anh thương. Mong anh yêu em hơn bởi vì em lúc yêu rất là bất thường. Dù chưa rõ nông sâu nhưng mà anh cứ mãi trong đầu. Đời người xưa mới hay có câu, có công mãi sắc có ngày nên duyên. Duyên mình ơi, em lấy đâu xuân thì để ngoài trời vơi. Nên em mong người hãy tâm lý và em mơ những điều bình thường. Chỉ nhờ anh biết thêm tình thương khi mà em phải lòng người thương.
bóng dáng ai bên cạnh đêm lại thêm lạnh rồi vòng tay ấm mưa rơi lại ta ngấm vào quá khứ một thời không nhắc thêm một lời mong cho đêm vẫn không lạnh chỉ giấc ngủ thật an lành và bình minh ánh nắng chiếu sáng khi mang em đến bên anh yeah bầu trời xanh đặc biệt đầy nắng ngây đó đây tự nhiên là những mình gần nhau thêm sẽ không bao giờ cảm thấy không cần phải đau thêm em là người khiến em mau quên đi những vết đen tình yêu này anh dành cho nắng và anh sẽ mãi là mây trắng chưa cơn gió nào cuốn lại em đi mất chỉ vì anh không thể cất sẽ được tay sẽ hết đêm rồi và sẽ không bao giờ anh đánh mất
Bây giờ mình em lại bơ vơ lạc vào giấc mơ rồi lại chơi vơi mình giữa đất trời nơi nào xa xôi ngàn đêm tối ai dần với em để gần anh mãi hoang nhạt
Vì sự
nhào.
hoang bị
Hi, I'm going to do an example about subnetting, and hopefully I'm going to be able to convince you that subnetting is a lot more simple than you might think, and that the root of all the confusion is all about the conversion from binary and back. So, as an example, I got an IP address here, and I have a /26. So what this does is it defines a subnet, and this is an IP address in the subnet. So, first thing you want to do is, what's that? Well, that's 26. The subnet mask for this subnet is going to be 26 ones followed by filling up with the rest zeros. So here's what I mean. So I've got this IP address of /26. So the subnet mask is 26 ones and then the rest are zeros. So that's what that is right there. And to find out information about the subnet, you write the IP address beneath it in binary, and then you can learn all kinds of things about it. So the questions that they might ask on an exam might be the number of hosts, or the subnet address, and then the broadcast address. And really, what happens is if you have a subnet, what you're doing is you're dividing a network up into smaller pieces, and each piece is called a subnet, and there are a certain number of addresses available in the subnet, and the lowest one is called the network address, the highest one is called the broadcast address, and everything in between, all the addresses in between, are called hosts. So here's how we do it. You have the IP address, we've written it here in binary. The subnet mask is 26 ones followed by the rest zeros. Then I'm going to draw a little line here. And the subnet mask, what these ones mean is every bit on this side of the line, you can't move it. It has to stay exactly the way it is. And every bit over here, you can move it. So that means you can have all of this, right? So exactly the same. And then all zeros, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the lowest address in the subnet. And then, since we can't move these, keep this the same. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The highest address would be all ones. So it turns out that this is all of this plus this is the network address, and all of this plus this is the broadcast address. Lowest one, highest one, and everything in between, right? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. Count all the way up until you get here. Everything in between is a host. So that's it, quite simply. You write this in binary, you put the rows, all zeros, network address, make them all ones, broadcast address, everything in between is a host. Okay? So that's it. So then you can say network address is, it's all of that plus the zeros. 9 or 2 to be moved, 2. So 1 with 2, 1. That's the net mask and network address. All ones is broadcasted.
What is a subnet mask? So that is the topic of this video. Now, before we talk about what a subnet mask is, we must first talk about what an IP address is. An IP address is an identifier for a computer or device on a network. Every device has to have an IP address for communication purposes. And to be specific, I'm talking about an IP version 4 address. An IP version 4 address is a 32-bit numeric address written as 4 numbers separated by periods. Each group of numbers that are separated by periods is called an octet. The number range in each octet is from 0 to 255. An IP address consists of 2 parts. The first part is the network address, and the second part is the host address. The network address, or network ID, is a number that's assigned to a network. So every network will have a unique address. The host address, or host ID, is what's assigned to hosts within that network, such as computers, servers, tablets, routers, and so on. So every host will have a unique host address. Now, the way to tell which portion of the IP address is the network or the host is where the subnet mask comes in. A subnet mask is a number that resembles an IP address, and it reveals how many bits in the IP address are used for the network by masking the network portion of the IP address. Now, in the world of computers and networks, IP addresses and subnet masks in this decimal format here are meaningless. And this is because computers and networks don't read them in this format. And that's because they only understand numbers in a binary format, which are ones and zeros. And these are called bits. So the binary number for this IP address is this number here. And the binary number for this subnet mask is this number. And these are the numbers that computers and networks only understand. So the next question is, how do we get these binary numbers from this IP address and this subnet mask? So here we have an 8-bit octet chart. The bits in each octet are represented by a number. So starting from the right, the first bit has a value of 1. It commences 0 on 0 1 get 1 because binary.
Neutrogena Ultra Shear ASIL, kênh chống nắng số 1 Hoa Kỳ, bảo vệ da với công nghệ Helioplex SPF 50+.
Binary conversion is exactly the same way together. So the way to tell which portion of this IP address, and then we'll cross out all the digits again, and this time it reveals that the first octet is the network portion and the last 3 octets are for hosts. Now figuring out the network and host parts of an IP address, the first 3 bits or subnetworks, which is known as subnetting. So for example, let's say that there were no small networks. Let's say that an organization has a large amount of computers in one huge network. Now, when a computer wants to talk to another computer, it needs to know how and where to reach that computer. And it does this by using a broadcast. A broadcast is when a computer sends out data to all computers on a network so it can locate and talk to a certain computer. So for example, let's say that this computer here wanted to communicate with this computer over here. So what happens next is that this computer here will send out a broadcast out on the network asking the target computer to identify itself so it can communicate with it. But the problem with this is that every computer on this network will also receive the broadcast because they are all on the same network. So as you can imagine, if every computer on this large network was broadcasting to every other computer just to communicate, it would be chaos. It would slow down the network and potentially bring it to a halt because of the tremendous amount of broadcast traffic it would cause. And it might even cause fires. Well, not really, but... And if a problem were to happen on the network, it would be very difficult to pinpoint because the network is so big. So in order to prevent this, networks need to be broken down into smaller networks. And networks are broken down and physically separated by using routers. And by using routers, this would alleviate the problem of excessive traffic because broadcasts do not go past routers. Broadcasts only stay within a network. So now, instead of one large network, this network is broken down into 6 subnetworks or subnets. So now, if this computer here wanted to communicate with this computer over here, the computer will send out a broadcast that only the computers in its subnetwork can receive. But since the target computer is on a different subnetwork here, the data will be sent to the default gateway, which is the router, and then the router will intelligently route the data to the destination. So this is why IP addresses have a network portion and a host portion. So networks can be logically broken down into smaller networks, which is known as subnetting. Hey guys, I just want to break in here and tell you that if you're a beginner and you want to learn more about networking, I highly recommend an audiobook that will help you do that. And that this is your IP address and subnet mask. Now let's say that your small business has a total of 12 computers and all 12 of these computers are on a single network. And these computers belong to different departments indicated by their colors. But let's say that you wanted to separate the computers into 3 different networks so that each department won't see the other department's network traffic. So instead of having one network in your business, you want to break it down into 3 small networks, submitting some of the bits into ones. So it will give us one network with 256 hosts. Now technically we have to subtract 2 hosts because the values that are all ones and zeros are reserved for the broadcast and network address respectively. So we actually have 254 usable hosts. But we need to change this subnet mask so we can produce the 3 networks that we need. So for example, let's borrow 1 bit from the host portion. So here is how we can work with 126 function.
C2 trà chanh được ủ từ lá trà 100% tự
portion borrows from the host portion the amount of networks that can be created for doubles with each bit, but also the amount of hosts per network gets cut in half with each bit. So going back to our business example, if we wanted to break this network down into 3 smaller networks or subnets, we would have to borrow 2 bits from the host portion. So even though we only need 3 networks, this subnet mask will give us at least 3 numbers. This is not a full lesson on how subnet. However, 3 of these classes, which is based on how many 5, this means that the subnet mask is 25 bits in length. Or if it's /26, this means that the subnet 8, don't forget to subscribe, subnet mask is 8 bits in length. Borrow 1 bit.
dần trôi. Đời này đâu mấy lần cơ hội, sao mà anh chưa nói. Bao lâu rồi sẽ tiếc cho mà sẽ. Người như anh xứng đáng có em, đừng suy nghĩ thế. Anh thấy cô đơn nên là em cho phép anh thương. Mong anh yêu em hơn. bình thường, chỉ nhờ anh viết thêm tình trường khi mà em phải lòng người thương.
Nhìn anh thấy cô đơn nên là em cho phép anh thương. Mong anh yêu em hơn bởi vì em lúc yêu rất là bất thường. Dù chưa rõ nông sâu nhưng mà anh cứ mãi trong đầu, bởi người xưa mới hay có câu có công mãi sẽ có.
Mình gặp nhau cũng lâu lắm rồi, cứ dứt khoát một lần đi thôi. Nếu anh nói ta không đẹp đôi là xem từng gu thẩm mỹ em rồi. Em luôn thấy bất an trong lòng khi không có anh cạnh bên. Cũng vì ai mà em cáu lên khi chỉ là một người yêu dấu tên nhà. Duyên của trời anh để mặc dần trôi, bật không biết mấy đèn xanh rồi chỉ chờ anh dám nói. Bao lâu rồi sẽ tiếc cho mà sẽ người như anh xứng đáng có em, đừng suy nghĩ thế. Nhìn anh thấy cô đơn nên là em cho phép anh thương. Mong anh hiểu em hơn bởi vì em lúc yêu rất là bất thường. Dù chưa rõ nông sâu nhưng mà anh cứ mãi trong đầu, bởi người xưa mới hay có câu có công mãi sắc có ngày nên duyên. Mình cùng nên duyên. Mình cùng nên duyên. Mau mau đưa cho người ta đôi tay, em không mong mình độc thân hôm nay. Cách anh mỉm cười làm em lung lay, em đắm say, em ngất ngây. Em cũng từng yêu, em đã từng đau, nhưng luôn tin mình sẽ gặp anh ở lần sau. Người em sẵn sàng trái lòng, nương tựa nhau suốt đời mãi không rời. Duyên của trời anh để mặc dần trôi, đời này đâu mấy lần cơ hội sao mà anh chưa nói. Bao lâu rồi sẽ tiếc cho mà sẽ người như anh xứng đáng có em, đừng suy nghĩ thế. Nhìn anh thấy cô đơn nên là em cho phép anh thương. Mong anh hiểu em hơn bởi vì em lúc yêu rất là bất thường. Dù chưa rõ nông sâu nhưng mà anh cứ mãi trong đầu, bởi người xưa mới hay có câu có công mãi sắc có ngày nên duyên. Mình cùng nên duyên. Mình cùng nên duyên. Duyên mình ơi, em lấy đâu xuân thì để hoài chơi vơi, nên em mong người hãy tâm lý và em mơ mơ những điều bình thường, chỉ nhờ anh viết thêm tình trường khi mà em phải lòng người thương.
stands for Network Address Translation, and this is a service that is used in routers, and its purpose is to translate a set of IP addresses to another set of IP addresses. And the reason for having the NAT service is to help preserve the limited amount of IP version 4 public IP addresses that we have available around the world. When the IP version 4 address was created, engineers didn't realize how big the internet would become, because even though there were over 4 billion IP version 4 addresses available, the engineers thought that that would be enough. But obviously they were wrong. So in order to prevent a shortage of public IP version 4 addresses, engineers developed private IP addresses and network address translation to prevent a shortage of public IP version 4 addresses. Engineers developed private IP addresses and network address translation. Now there are two different types of IP version 4 addresses. There's public and there is private. Public IP addresses are publicly registered on the internet. You have to have a public IP address if you want to go on the internet. And there are approximately 4 billion public IP addresses available, so they are limited. Now private IP addresses are different. Private IP addresses are not publicly registered, so you cannot directly access the internet with a private IP. Private IP addresses are only used internally, such as inside a home or business. They are not used out on the public internet, and your router is what assigns your internal devices a private IP. So for example, most internal devices a private IP. So for example, most home internal devices a private IP. So for example, most homes and businesses are not going to have just one device that needs internet access. Chances are that they are going to have multiple devices that need access to the internet. So those devices need a public IP address if they want to access the internet. Now you could contact your internet service provider and ask them for these additional public IP addresses for all of your devices, but that's going to be more expensive, unnecessary, and more importantly, it would also be a waste of public IP addresses. And let's face it, if every device in the world had their own public IP address, we would have ran out of public IP addresses already. So instead, we can have our router assign the devices inside our home or business private IP addresses. And when our devices need to access the internet, their private IP address will be translated by NAT in the router to the one public IP address that we have been given. So again, this is what NAT does. It translates a set of IP addresses to another set of IP addresses. So not only does it translate private to public, but it also translates public to private. Because if a computer out on the internet wants to communicate with a computer on this private network, then the public IP address needs to be translated by NAT to the private IP address for that computer. Now in the future, we have a public IP address needs to be translated by NAT to the private IP address for that computer. Now in the future, we won't need NAT or private IP addresses. And this is because of the new generation of an IP address called IP version 6. With IP version 6, every single device in the world will have its own public IP address. So there is no need for IP address translation. And this is because IP version 6 is able to produce over 340 undecillion IP addresses. So that's the number 340 with 30 out.
What is a broadcast IP address? Discover the power of broadcast IP addresses, an essential component of network communication. What is a broadcast address? A broadcast address is a special IP used to send messages to all devices in a LAN simultaneously. Unlike unicast addresses for a single device, broadcast IPs reach every participant, facilitating seamless communication. Broadcast addresses are divided into two different types: limited broadcast addresses and directed broadcast addresses. Limited broadcast addresses stay on a local network segment. They work for tasks that require communication only within a local network, such as file sharing. Directed broadcast IPs extend their reach beyond a single network segment and target a specific subnet rather than being broadcast to all local devices. Key functions: broadcasting, sending data to all hosts in a network through a broadcast address. Multicasting, transmitting data to a select group of devices. Unique identifier, each network has one unique broadcast IP for efficient information sharing. Practical uses: network discovery, devices use broadcast IPs to identify other network connections. Configuration updates, efficiently update network settings across all devices with a single broadcast message. In networking, the broadcast IP address is like broadcasting music to a vast audience, ensuring seamless communication and updates for all network devices. Ready to enhance your network communication? Learn more at whatismyip.com.
Hàng by street đúng không?
Address.